All right, so you've got an interview coming up for an air separation plant operator position.
Wow, that's
Big deal.
yeah.
These roles, they're in high demand, right?
Yeah.
And you've clearly got your eye on the prize. Even better, you've got RoleCatcher in your corner.
Absolutely.
You sent over their career guide and a seriously impressive interview guide, too, specifically for this job.
Mm.
Let's deep dive into these resources, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's unearth those golden nuggets, those little bits of advice that will help you completely ace this interview.
It's huge that you're doing your prep work. A lot of folks, they think they can just walk into an interview and wing it.
Right.
But this level of preparation, this shows real commitment. It
Yeah.
shows you're serious about this.
It does. It shows you're going the extra mile. Speaking of going the extra mile, RoleCatcher's interview guide, it kicks off with a real classic, that question. Can you tell us about your experience operating air separation plants? Seems simple enough, right? But I'm betting there's a lot riding on how a person answers this one.
Absolutely. They're not just asking for a laundry list of places you've worked. What they're really after is the depth of your experience. Have you worked with similar plants? What kinds of equipment do you know like the back of your hand? This, my friend, this is your time to shine. But before you launch into like a super detailed technical novel, just remember the Goldilocks approach. Not too vague, not too technical, just right. Give them a clear picture of your experience, but don't overwhelm them with jargon.
So instead of saying, I have lots of experience with cryogenic distillation columns,
Right.
which honestly, that sounds kind of intimidating, you could say?
Exactly. You could say something like, I've operated and maintained cryogenic air separation plants, which meant monitoring and adjusting the distillation process. You see the difference. Same expertise, but now it's relatable, right?
Okay, that's a smooth move. Now I'm guessing they won't stop there, right?
Yeah.
What kind of follow-up questions should someone be ready for?
Oh, they'll definitely want specifics. Definitely. Be prepared to talk about a time you had to troubleshoot an equipment malfunction. They want to see how you handle pressure, right? And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can really give you an edge, I think. You can actually use it to practice your answers and it'll give you feedback on how to make them even stronger.
Wait, hold up. RoleCatcher has AI that can help with interview prep. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie. Seriously.
It's true. It's like having a personal interview coach available 24/7 right there in your pocket. You can
Right.
input the job description, even just paste it in, and the AI will go to work. It analyzes the text to understand exactly what skills and experience they're looking for. And then, get this, it helps you tailor your answers to hit those points. It's a game changer. I'll tell you that.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, back to those interview questions. The next one the RoleCatcher highlights is all about safety. How do you ensure compliance with safety regulations and protocols when operating air separation plants? That's a big deal in any industrial environment, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Safety, it's paramount in this field. And look, they're not just looking for you to rattle off a list of regulations, like you're reciting a textbook. They want to see that safety is ingrained in your work ethic, that you live it and breathe it.
Okay, so don't just say, I follow the rules.
No.
What would be a really good answer to that question? What would impress them?
A strong answer. It would demonstrate a proactive approach to safety. For example, you could say something like, I'm committed to maintaining a safe work environment by not just adhering to OSHA regulations and company protocols, but by actively participating in safety meetings and trainings to stay updated on best practices. I also make it a point to regularly review and refresh my knowledge of safety procedures. You see how that goes beyond just the bare minimum?
Definitely. You've shown them you're serious about safety. It's not just a box to check off. Now, let's say they follow up with, tell me about a time you identified a potential safety hazard and what you did about it. What kind of story would really impress them, make them sit up and take notice?
The best stories are the ones that show initiative. Maybe you noticed a piece of equipment that looked a little worn out, something that could pose a risk. Talk about how you reported it right away, you followed the proper procedures for tagging it out of service, and maybe you even suggested a preventative maintenance schedule to avoid similar issues down the line.
So it's not just about fixing problems, it's about preventing them in the first place. That's what's impressive, that forward thinking.
Exactly. And you know what? RoleCatcher's AI, it can help you craft those compelling narratives too, those stories that really stick with people. It can analyze your answers and suggest ways to make them even more impactful. You can even practice different scenarios and get feedback on your delivery. It's like having a dress rehearsal for your interview.
That's seriously cool. It's like having a secret weapon for your career.
Oh,
Okay, let's keep digging into these questions because we're on a roll here. RoleCatcher's guide lists, how do you troubleshoot equipment issues in air separation plants? as a crucial one. This, to me, this sounds like they're really testing your technical chops here.
They are, but it's not enough to just know what to do. They want to see your thought process. How do you approach a problem? How do you break it down?
So walk them through your steps, like step by step.
Exactly. Let's say a pressure sensor is acting up. Instead of just saying, I replaced the sensor, explain your reasoning. Like, for example, I noticed the pressure readings were fluctuating, so I consulted the system schematics to isolate the potential cause. Then I conducted a series of diagnostic tests which pointed to a faulty pressure sensor. After verifying the issue, I followed the proper lockout-tagout procedures to safely replace the sensor. And of course, I recalibrated the system to ensure accurate readings.
Wow, you just turned a routine repair into a masterclass in problem solving.
Yeah.
That level of detail, that's what sets a candidate apart.
Precisely. And here's where RoleCatcher's career guide ties in beautifully. It emphasizes the importance of continuous learning in this field, always expanding your skill set.
Because the technology is always changing, right? There's always something new to learn.
Exactly. Employers are looking for someone who is adaptable and eager to stay ahead of the curve. So when they ask you about your experience troubleshooting, make sure you highlight any opportunities you've taken to expand your knowledge or learn new systems. Even if it's just a little bit, every bit counts.
That's a great tip. Show them you're not just fixing today's problems, but that you're invested in being a problem-solving pro for years to come.
Yeah.
All right, ready to tackle the next question? I know I am.
Absolutely, bring it on. So moving on to question number 4 from RoleCatcher's guide. How do you optimize production output in air separation plants? This one's interesting. It goes beyond just, keeping things running. It's about going that extra mile.
Yeah, it's like you've shown them you can handle the day-to-day, but can you actually make things even better, right? Like, what are they hoping to hear?
Exactly. They want to see that you understand the bigger picture, how different factors impact production, and how to actually make adjustments to really maximize efficiency. Think about key performance indicators, purity levels, production rates, energy consumption. Those are like your clues.
Okay, so let's say they throw a curveball, like, give me an example of a time you improved a process or system in a plant. How do you knock that one out of the park?
This is where those analytical skills really come in handy. Maybe you notice some inconsistencies in the oxygen purity levels, for example. Instead of just shrugging it off, you dug deeper. You could say, well, I was looking at the data logs, and I noticed a correlation between the inconsistencies and the timing of the pre-cooling cycle. So, based on that, I went ahead and adjusted the cycle parameters, which actually resulted in a 2% increase in purity, and get this, it even reduced energy consumption.
Now, that's what I call a win-win. You've shown them you're not just following procedures, you're actively looking for ways to improve, to do better.
Right. And this ties into a key point in RoleCatcher's career guide, which is it's not enough to just be good at your job today. You got to be thinking about tomorrow. You know what I mean?
So how do you demonstrate that kind of forward thinking in an interview, though?
When they ask about optimizing output, weave in any training you've taken on new technologies, or if you've got any ideas for process improvements, even if they're just ideas, right? Share them. Show them you're already thinking like a leader in the field. You're not just following, you're leading.
That's gold. Okay, next question from RoleCatcher. How do you ensure the quality of the products produced in air separation plants? This is going back to purity and all those important tests, right? Making sure you're delivering the good stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just about, knowing the testing protocols by heart. It's about demonstrating a deep understanding of why those protocols matter.
Okay, so don't just say, I follow the rules. Give me an example of a really stellar answer, something that would knock their socks off.
You could say something like, meeting industry standards for gas purity. That's non-negotiable for me. In my previous role, I went ahead and implemented a really rigorous sampling and analysis schedule. We went above and beyond the minimum requirements just to make sure we were consistently catching any potential issues early on. I also made it a point to work really closely with the maintenance team, make sure those analyzers were always calibrated on time. This proactive approach, you know what? It led to a significant reduction in out-of-spec batches. We were on top of it.
Wow, you just painted a picture of someone who doesn't just understand quality control, they own it, they're all over it.
That's the goal, right? And you know what? This is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can be a game changer. You can practice answering this question. And get this, the AI will actually analyze your response. It'll even compare it to successful answers from other candidates.
Right, really?
Yeah. It's like having access to a database of, interview wisdom.
Okay, that's just ridiculously helpful. All right, let's dive into question 6. What do you say? RoleCatcher's Guide. It's throwing us a bit of a curveball here with this one. Can you describe your experience working with cryogenic air separation plants? It's getting specific here. Why the focus on this type of plant?
Well, cryogenic distillation, it's a really common method in air separation, so they want to make sure you're comfortable with the specifics of this process, right? It's about showing off that specialized knowledge you've got.
Okay, makes sense. So if you've got experience in this area, what are the key things to highlight? What should you make sure you mention?
Definitely talk about your hands-on experience with the equipment, heat exchangers, turbo expanders, distillation columns, or, the usual suspects. But don't just list them. Explain how you've operated them, how you've monitored them, even how you've troubleshooted them. Give them the details.
It's all about showing, not just telling, right?
Exactly. And they might even ask, tell me about a really challenging situation you faced while you were operating a cryogenic air separation plant. They want to see how you handle the heat, so to speak.
Okay, bring on the pressure. What kind of story would really impress them in that kind of scenario?
Let's say you had a pressure surge in the distillation column, for example. You wouldn't just say, oh my gosh, it was so scary. Instead, you'd calmly explain, well, we experienced a pressure surge in the distillation column, and following the emergency procedures, I isolated the affected section and slowly depressurized the system to make sure we avoided any potential equipment damage or safety hazards.
Talk about grace under pressure. You've demonstrated technical expertise and a cool head. You practically wrote the manual on handling emergencies.
Exactly. And that ability to stay calm under pressure, that is something employers look for at every stage of your career.
So maybe acing this interview is also about showcasing skills that will help someone climb the ladder down the line, right?
Yeah.
Thinking long term. What else from RoleCatcher's Career Guide should someone be thinking about in terms of, long-term career growth in this field? What really stood out to you?
One thing that jumps out is the emphasis on certifications. They can really, really boost your credibility and, let's be real, your earning potential as you move up in your career. So even if you're just starting out, having those certifications on your radar, it shows you're thinking long term.
Yeah, it's like they say, invest in yourself.
Yeah.
And certifications are definitely a way to do that. Okay, are you ready to tackle this next question?
Hit me with it.
Okay, so RoleCatcher's Guide. It seems to be throwing us a little bit of a curveball here with this one. Listen to this. How do you manage plant maintenance and repair activities in air separation plants?
Okay.
It sounds like we're shifting gears a little bit, right?
Yeah.
We're moving away from that technical expertise and more toward those organizational skills. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, you're right. It's a different angle for sure. They're trying to see, do you understand the bigger picture? See, preventative maintenance, that's key to minimizing downtime, right? They want to see that you're proactive. You're not just reacting to things.
So I call the maintenance team when something breaks. That's not going to cut it.
No, probably not. Think about it this way, okay? You're part of a team. You're not just an operator. You're part of something bigger. So you could say something like, I really believe in a proactive approach to maintenance, I make it a habit to just conduct these thorough routine checks, make sure everything is in tip-top shape. I'm comfortable troubleshooting those, minor issues, the ones that pop up, just to prevent them from, escalating into something bigger. And of course, I work really closely with the maintenance team. We're always in communication, sharing my observations, collaborating on preventative maintenance schedules. It's a team effort.
Yeah. It's like the eyes and ears of the plant, always on the lookout, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's say they dig a little deeper. Describe a time you had to manage an unexpected equipment failure. How did you minimize that downtime? How did you keep things running smoothly? What's a good strategy for a question like that?
Focus on what you did, your actions, and then the positive outcome. You could say, well, I once noticed some unusual vibrations in a compressor, and this was during a routine inspection, just like we were talking about. So I flagged it right away. I let the maintenance team know. I gave them all the details, all my observations. We worked together. We diagnosed the problem. We replaced the faulty part. Because we caught it early, we completely avoided a major breakdown, which minimized downtime, which of course, minimized potential production losses. It was a win-win for everybody.
It's like you're like the detective almost,
Mm-hmm.
always on the case. And you highlighted those teamwork skills, which are so important. Speaking of teamwork, RoleCatcher's next question kind of dives right into that. How do you communicate effectively with your team members and other stakeholders in air separation plant operations?
So we're really getting into soft skills here, aren't we?
Exactly. See, technical expertise, that'll get you in the door, right? But it's those soft skills that will really set you apart. They're looking for someone who can clearly communicate, and not just with their own team, but with supervisors, with suppliers, with external contractors. You got to be able to talk to everybody.
So what's the secret sauce here? How do you ace a question like that? Honestly, I think it's about demonstrating that you're a team player, someone who can really adapt their communication style to different audiences. You're talking to a supervisor, it's different than talking to a teammate, right? You could say, well, I really believe in open and transparent communication. That's key. I actively listen to my colleagues. I provide clear instructions. I make sure everybody's on the same page, especially when it comes to operational changes. We don't want any surprises, right? I'm also really comfortable explaining those complex technical details in a way that's easy for non-technical people to understand.
You're like a translator almost.
Yeah.
Bridging the gap between different worlds.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to throw in a curveball here. Are you ready?
Sure.
What if they say something like, describe a situation where you actually had to resolve a conflict within your team? Because those can be tricky, right?
Absolutely. But it's actually a great chance to highlight your problem-solving skills, even those leadership skills. Keep it brief, keep it positive, focus on the positive outcome, always. You could say something like, well, we once had a bit of a disagreement. It was about the best approach to a maintenance task. Everyone had their own opinion. So I facilitated an open discussion. Everybody got to voice their concerns, their perspectives, and by encouraging that collaboration, we all agreed on a solution. It was great. It combined everyone's input, and the best part, we completed the task safely and efficiently.
It's like you turned a potential roadblock into like a team building exercise.
Yeah.
Okay, last question from RoleCatcher, and it's a big one, so listen closely. How do you stay up to date with the latest technology and industry trends in air separation plant operations? Because this is a field that is constantly evolving. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. The technology, it's changing so fast. Honestly, it feels like every day there's something new to learn. They're looking for someone who is committed to that continuous learning, who really wants to stay ahead of the game.
So, I learned everything I needed to know in school.
Yeah.
Definitely not the message to send.
No, absolutely not. Instead, you want to highlight how you're proactive about your learning, right? Mention industry conferences you've attended, workshops, online courses, even those professional organizations, the American Gas Association, the Compressed Gas Association, things like that. Even just reading industry journals, it all counts. Show them you're engaged.
Show them that you're not just keeping up, you are ahead of the game. What if they ask for a specific example, though? Like, tell me about a time you learned a new technology or a new process that actually benefited your work, that made a difference.
Okay, this is your chance to shine. You could say, well, I recently participated in a webinar. It was all about this new predictive maintenance software. It was specifically designed for air separation plants. I was so impressed. Honestly, I was blown away by its potential to optimize our maintenance schedules and reduce downtime that I actually went back to my team and advocated for its implementation at our facility. And you know what? It's been a game changer. It really has.
Wow. You didn't just learn something new. You actually brought it back to your workplace and made a real difference, made a real impact. Okay, we have covered so much ground today, from the really technical ins and outs of air separation plants to those all-important, soft skills, those people skills. We even talked about how RoleCatcher's AI can give you a personalized edge in your job search, which is phenomenal.
It's all about preparation, right? The more prepared you are, the more confident it'll be. You've got the knowledge, you've got the insights, and now thanks to RoleCatcher, you've got the tools to really succeed in this field.
You've got this. Now go out there and knock their socks off.